kind of talking through her focus on your future session, talking about kind of digital industries and tech sectors, specifically in Manchester, but also kind of a little bit further afield as well. If you have any questions in the chat, then please do pop them in. I know that we are streaming on YouTube and Facebook, so you can add some questions there and I'll pick them up as well, and I'll put them in the chat for Becky as well as we go, if that's okay. So,
yep, Pat.
yeah, I haven't said hello to you.
Hi.
Hi, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I will apologise because my dog's barking in the background, but hopefully.
Hopefully things, I think, during the pandemic and lockdown, we're all working from home. We've had to deal with like delivery drivers knocking at the door, dogs barking, siblings shouting. It's one of those things.
Yeah, she's got precision timing. She knows exactly when you're going live, and that's when she starts. So if you can hear it, apologies.
No worries. Are you okay to share your screen and we can get started as soon as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So bear with me 2 minutes.
No worries.
And I'll just put this into full present mode. That's working, isn't it?
It is. Perfect. I can see it all okay.
Right, brilliant. I will get started. So first of all, hi to everyone who's watching. I am Becky and I'm the Head of Talent and Skills at Manchester Digital. So as Katie said, I'm here to talk to you about kind of the digital industry, digital careers, and give you a little bit of a background of what's happening and some of the opportunities that are out there. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is, I'll tell you a bit of a brief introduction to Manchester Digital, how they support the industry and how they can support you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience in the sector as well, and it'll become apparent why. We'll then start to look at the digital and tech sector here in Greater Manchester. We'll look at some jobs that are out there currently, some career pathways, and then there'll be a Q&A at the end. So as I said, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or save them at the end. I will do my best to answer them. What I will say before we start is I'm not an expert in everything in this industry. And I think that's something kind of echoing from the part that I found of the last conversation, that we don't know everything. Some of the things, you know, we're all still learning and things move really fast. So I will do my best. And if I can't answer anything today, I will get back to you. So just to give you a bit of an intro to Manchester Digital. So we are the trade body for the digital and tech sector in Greater Manchester. So what that means is we support digital and tech businesses of all sizes. So that's right from freelancers and individuals right up to the big corporates that we have here. We also do a lot of lobbying with government where we know there's maybe legislation needs changing, where there's potentially skills gap that need funding. We do a lot of that. So there's a lot of research into the sector as well, and that research, that intelligence helps us to work with businesses and with government to kind of shape what the industry needs. And we also run a talent and skills department. So that's what I head up at the moment. Currently, we've got a level 4 software developer apprenticeship, which is led by employers. We run a program called Digital Her, which I'm sure you can imagine is about encouraging more women into the industry. And we also run different professional development courses. So as you're going through your career, we make sure that there are continuing kind of training programs and things like that available to help you to continue to learn. So how can we support you? What I would say is after the session today, definitely go and have a look at the Manchester Digital website. There's so much stuff on there. So if you want to kind of a place to learn about the industry, different companies and things, go and have a look and, you know, spend some time just searching around there and what's on there. But we do a whole host of events. Now, some of these are aimed at businesses. Some of them are aimed at schools and colleges, but the majority of events are kind of free to go to. It will tell you if it's a free or a paid event. Some of them we put on, some of them are put on by some of our members as well. But have a look at the events that are going on there, because there's loads where you can go and sit in the background and learn, especially now everything's digital. It makes it really easy. Obviously, we've got the apprenticeship program that we run that I mentioned, so the level 4 software developer program. We intake for that every September, and that is we team up with different employers from around the region to run and deliver that as well. Digital Her program, obviously, I mentioned we do schools and college road shows, but there's lots of different events that are coming up. We've got a podcast, we've got a celebration event on Monday. There's so much work that's going into kind of increasing the number of women in the industry, and the reasons why we need to do that and how we can bring diversity and things like that. So it's really worth going and having a look at that. We do a skills audit every year. So that came out, I think 3 weeks ago. So this year we've got a national skills audit and a Northwest skills audit that you can look at. And this is really important because it just gives you a bit of a snapshot of what's happening in the industry, what employers are saying, what are the key jobs that they're looking for. And it just gives you a bit of a background, like I said, into the industry, and that might be interesting for you making decisions in your career and how you move forward. There's also a jobs ad section. So when you're at the point where you're looking for jobs within the industry, then all of our employers get to advertise their vacancies there. So it's always worth having a look. And if you're not in the market for a job currently, then again, go and have a look. It'll tell you what's out there, what kind of jobs are out there, which companies are hiring, what the skills are. It's a really good place to go and learn about kind of some of the skills that you need for the jobs that are coming up. And as I mentioned, we also offer training courses. So these vary throughout the year, depending on kind of what's needed by the industry. Sometimes it's around what funding is available. We get asked to run things, but there's various different ones happening at different times. So it's always worth checking that out. And you can, on the website, sign up to our newsletter. So all that information will get pushed out to you as well, which is easier. So I'm going to take a few moments just to talk you through my experience. So I started a marketing degree at university. I did 12 months of that degree and really didn't like it. And so I left after a year and I went to work in marketing for a design agency. From there, I moved to a marketing agency. So for anyone that's not familiar with the term agency or what they do, agencies work with multiple different clients producing materials for them. So whether it's design, whether it's marketing, whether it's digital, but they are responsible for producing content or campaigns for different clients. So across these, I worked with clients like Marks and Spencer. I worked with Pontin's Holidays, if that's even exists anymore. And we produce various different things for them. So I went to a marketing agency, so same kind of job, working on different things. So I went from where we designed brands for people to maybe do more campaign work. So some of the ads that you'll see in newspapers and things like that. I then moved to Subway, so the sandwich place, and I worked as their marketing manager. So I was responsible for all of the marketing that happened across the regions. So we did some big outdoor campaigns, we had TV campaigns, and we were really looking there about how do we increase sales. From there, I went to work for a digital agency. So back to the agency world, but this time it was much more focused on digital. And the outputs that we worked on were different. And we started looking at more online advertising, more web opportunities. But again, still working for other clients. And then went back to work for a brand agency. So this was really creating, what does the brand look like? So thinking about someone's logo and their identity, what's that look like and how do we create that? But again, another agency, so working with those clients. I then went to work for Co-op. And one of the jobs that people find really bizarre when I tell them, but I worked for Co-op Funeral Care. So I worked, again, within the marketing department. And I worked within the planning team. So I worked on campaigns, I worked with local branches. And again, it was about how do we produce content, literature, campaigns to reach people who need our services. And it was actually a really, really interesting job. I then moved from there to AJ Bell. So AJ Bell are a fintech company based in Manchester. And I was responsible for all the communications there, the customer communications. And AJ Bell essentially do have self-invested platforms that you can go and you can buy shares and you can open an ISA and you can open a pension and various things. But I worked there. So that was me moving into that fintech space. So if you start to look back, there's only 2 times now I've really kind of mentioned the online space. So that first digital agency and then coming into AJ Bell in a fintech. So I then went back to brand agency because I love brand. And from there, I actually went back to a fintech. So I went to a company that you may have heard of, again, another big Manchester company called Car Finance 24/7. And they, again, another fintech, but they offer finance through an online platform. So you fill in your details and they will match you. They act as a broker and they will match you to a finance provider. So you can go and buy a car or a motorbike or a van, whatever it is that you need. And whilst I was there, so I was working in a tech company, but I was head of brand. So I was in the marketing department still. I then went back to a digital brand agency, so merging my experience, so producing online campaigns and brand campaigns for other people. And then I ended up here at Manchester Digital. So the reason I've told you all about that is not just to talk about myself, but there's a few things that I wanted to share with you along the way, because as you can see, my career's taken a very a different path. It's moved around and I've done different things in different types of agency. I've not just stuck in one thing throughout the time. So if we go back, my first job was in 2000. And that first agency that I worked for, there was no digital. We didn't do any digital. The internet was about, it was definitely there. I'm not that old, but digital wasn't inherent in every agency and in every communications campaign. There wasn't as much out there. You know, I then went to agencies where digital became a department within another agency. And I remember the first agency that I worked at that had, it was called New Media, and we had a small team that built websites for us. And if you think social media then didn't start till around 2004. So there was no real kind of content creators. There was no campaigns in social. There's no need for us to consider that social language and all those platforms and influencers and things like that. The first iPhone didn't come out till 2007. So before 2007, we had very limited access to content and campaigns and things like that on the go. So there was a lot more was about traditional means and people accessing things from a desktop or a laptop computer. And then obviously the App Store didn't launch until 2008. So again, there was no apps. That wasn't a consideration. So when I was at Car Finance, when I was at AJ Bell, we had websites, but we also had apps. That wouldn't have happened had I been working there earlier. So the reason why I'm telling you this is just to show how quickly the industry changes. So 20 years in my career feels like a long time. But in the relatively short space of time, things have changed really, really quickly. And they'll continue to as well. There's been new tech developments. So as I said, you know, the internet was around, it was a thing, absolutely, but not to the level that it is now. There weren't as many e-commerce companies, there weren't apps, you know, we didn't have smartphones back at the beginning, so things are changing. The other thing I wanted to point out is that you don't always need a defined career path. So I've kind of stuck within sort of an industry, so between marketing and advertising and digital and tech. They kind of, you know, the lines are blurred between them, they all cross over. So I've kind of stayed within that, but I've definitely not had a defined career path, and I've moved about in my time, and that's totally possible. The other thing is that if we're talking about the digital and tech industry, not all roles are tech roles. So, you know, as I said, when I was at AJ Bell and at Car Finance, I was not in a tech role. I was in a tech company, but I was not in a tech role. And right now, you know, as head of talent and skill, I'm still not a very technical person. So don't think just because of, you know, the skills you think you have or what your interests are, you don't have to be a real techie to work in the digital industry. And the other thing I'll say is it's never too late to get into the industry. You know, I've got into the industry because that's how the industry's kind of developed along the way. But I definitely didn't have the knowledge that I've got now when I started out. So it is never too late to join. And like I said, there'll be developments in the industry now that I don't know about because I'm not kept up to date, but people starting in the industry now will, and they'll be more proficient in them. So it's just never, ever too late to get into the industry. So when we talk about digital and tech industry in Manchester, you know, we've got a huge, huge industry here, a huge community, which is brilliant. There's over 100,000 people employed just in the digital and tech industry alone. And these figures are actually quite out of date now. So I imagine this will have grown massively. Manchester is the fastest growing tech city within Europe, which is a big statement to make. And we're also the UK's top digital tech city. So we may not be the biggest, but when you balance the size of Manchester, the speed of growth, the investment that's being put into Manchester, and also the fact, one of the facts around investment is that it is obviously cheaper to set up and run a business from Manchester than maybe London. That's why it's claiming the title as UK's top digital tech city. So it's a really exciting place to be and to start your career. There's so many opportunities here. So I need to mention the pandemic because we're still in it, and it has impacted businesses, and it's one of the things that's really changed kind of industries. It's halted industries. It's changed the way we work. And the digital and tech industry has been impacted, absolutely. But one of the things with digital and tech is that's going to be at the forefront of helping businesses recover. So whether that's from helping businesses get online and switch them from maybe, a shop that now becomes an e-commerce site, or to how we have all been able to communicate online through various different platforms. It is at the forefront of it. So just pulled out a few facts from our recent skills audit, just to kind of highlight, how that there is a security within the industry. So over the past 12 months, 40% of the businesses that we surveyed in the skills audit had reported an increase in revenue, which is just incredible considering everything that's going on, considering the changes. 40% of the businesses we spoke to were still able to increase their revenue, which is great. 34% of the companies still recruited into their teams. So again, yes, it was impacted, and had we not had a pandemic, that figure will have been a lot higher, but still there are businesses that were able to thrive within the last 12 months, even given the restrictions we've had. Now, 30% of businesses reported a loss in business, and I wanted to put that into, I'm not trying to paint a picture that the industry survived everything and everything is great. People have been impacted by it, absolutely. But we also found that it was 12% less impact than the national average. So we did a national report and we did a Northwest report. So it feels like we have been impacted in the Northwest, but we are recovering well, and the future's still quite bright. So I think it's important to have that view of the region that we're in. So when we talk about digital and tech businesses, what do we mean, and what is here on our doorstep? So I've pulled together, this is just a handful of the businesses that are out there, and hopefully some of the brands that you'll kind of recognise. So, we've got the fintechs that we talked about, so car finance, AJ Bell are up there. You've got a lot of e-commerce here as well. So, if we think of Boohoo and Misguided, Music Magpie are here, Beauty Bay, AO, they're all based in the Northwest. And then you've got other companies, you've got your telecoms like TalkTalk, you've got Amazon have got departments here. And you've got medical companies such as Push Doctor are here. And I've even included the NHS Test and Trace, because there's a number of businesses within the Northwest, there's a lot of consultancies that worked on test and trace schemes. So digital and tech doesn't have to be the brands that you know about. And it also doesn't have to be a transactional element that you interact with as a consumer as well. So if you think, let's take an example, we've got Co-op here. So you can go onto Co-op and you can go onto their website, and that's great. And they've got an app, and that's great. And you can buy insurance through them online, brilliant. They've also got a lot of systems internally to make everything work, to make that business operate. So there will be people within the Co-op that build those back-end systems. There will be people at AJ Bell that build the platforms where you can trade on. It's not necessarily something that we see, but they build those back-end systems. And it's the same, with Bentley, we look at cars and it's like, we will have digital departments within Bentley that yes, are working on some of the platforms you see, so whether that's a website or maybe some of their digital marketing campaigns, but think about the tech behind the scenes as well. How do the sales platforms work? How does some of the tech within the vehicles themselves work? You know, when cars have apps that can control a car, that is all kind of a digital and tech department that's built that. So when we talk about digital and tech, it's not just necessarily the things that we see as a consumer. There's so much behind the scenes that make everything work. So just remember that. But this just shows you, like I said, a snapshot of companies that are here in Greater Manchester. If you're interested in digital and tech, or if you're interested in working in the beauty industry, you know, you've got Look Fantastic, you've got Beauty Bay. There's so many businesses here that you can start working with, and it's a brilliant place to start. So we're talking about digital and tech jobs. And one of the things I wanted to talk about and start to hopefully shed a little bit of insight into is what that means. So we've done a piece of work to simplify what kind of jobs are out there. And this, again, is just a snapshot. It's a small snapshot. And what we tried to do is categorize those job roles into maybe different departments. Now, before we go through them, what I will say is this is a summary. This isn't how it is within every company. Every company is different. How they build their departments are different. But it will start to give you a feel for the different kind of roles that are out there, and might give you a direction to research into, or you might find something that you think you're interested in. But it shows kind of that vast range of jobs that are out there. So the first area is digital marketing. So we probably have all had interaction with digital marketing in some way, whether we've been served an ad or some content. Digital marketing, there's so many different jobs. So you've got strategy people who decide what they'll be doing and why. So what's the objective of that marketing campaign? How are they going to make that happen? What are the channels they should use? What are the messages? What are the audience? How to reach them? You've got people that specialize in social media. So, you know, it sounds like it's a really fun job. It's a great platform to be on, but these people are specialists in it. You know, there are agencies that just specialize in social media. If you look at people like Social Chain, who are in Manchester, or started in Manchester and now a global company, they specialize in that, understanding social media as a platform, all the different platforms within social media, how they work, how to increase engagement, how to be at the forefront of new releases and new things that you can do. SEO, so search engine optimization. So how do you make sure that search engines pick up your website and you get listed higher? PPC, so your paid campaigns that you see. So when you search on Google, the ones that come up at the top, these are paid for campaigns, but how these are people that specialize in how to use keywords and how to analyze the data that comes back from that to make sure that you're getting the results. And then you've got CRO, and you've just got a marketer as well. So CRO is your conversion rate optimizers. So they might look at a website and think, how do we make more people convert from the page with the dress on it to convert to actually buying that? So they'll start to look at how they can convert people through to sale or through to application, whatever it is. And then you've got marketers as well, like general marketers. There's people that still need to have an awareness of how to run marketing campaigns and how to do that work. So that just shows you a snapshot of the various different jobs that are out there. Creative marketing often gets forgotten about when we talk about digital and tech, I think, because you know, we've got all these platforms being built, but we absolutely need that creative, that visual look to put that information on there. So, you know, you've got a digital designer, so it like a graphic designer, but specializes in understanding those digital platforms and how to design for them. You've got content people, so whether that's people that want to create content, maybe for a social platform, or maybe it's about developing written content, because you've also got copywriters as well. There's a slight difference between whether you're writing copy to sell or writing copy to inform, but copywriters is a role. So if you love English, if you love writing, then content and copy are really good roles to look at. And then you've got people that specialise in emails as well. So we all get tons every day, but there's a lot of thought and design that goes into that to make sure that people take action from those emails as well. So then we get into the other areas. So data, you know, this is just a huge area for every business, because the more you know about the people that are interacting with you, the more you can inform kind of every department that works within the business. So data is really key within every business now. So you've got people that look at the analytics side of this. You've got people who look at business intelligence. You've got data scientists. You've got data modelers. You've got system analysts. There's so many different jobs. It's not just one job working in data. So if you're, you know, maybe if you really enjoy working like studying maths, or maybe you've been in, you know, you've studied science in the past, and these are things that you really enjoy, go and have a look at data, because there's so many different roles out there that you can find one that kind of works to what it is that you enjoy doing. And then the same with developers. So software developers are kind of one of the key roles for the industry. So from our skills audit the last couple of years, it's consistently across the Northwest, people saying that we need software developers, we need more software developers. And you know, you've heard from Code Nation, you know, we run an apprenticeship, there's so many people offering courses to help people train into that. But even when you get to developer, it's not just one role. So you've got your front end developers, you've got developers that only work in the back end, you've got full stack developers, you've got developers that specialize in kind of mobile and app, and then you've got people that build software as well. So again, it's starting to look behind that title and having a think about, you know, research what the difference is and what are the things that you enjoy, because there's so much more behind that one role. Then we get into UX. So UX, for those that don't know it, is user experience. And with user experience, obviously, it's about creating the best possible experience for the user online. So the ideal is people get to their destination in as few clicks as possible. How do we help people navigate the page? How do we stop people from dropping off? So user experience, again, this is one of the big growing departments. I think a few years ago, it was a much smaller, there was much fewer people working in UX, but what you see in digital and tech is something grows. So UX has grown and created more specific roles, and that department is growing as a whole. So you've now got people, you've got UX researchers, and we've got some talks on our site. UX researchers aren't technical people. You've got UX developers, you've got UX analysts. So, you know, all these times people have to look at the data that's coming out, you know, the behaviors that are happening, and make some decisions of how to make improvements. So really have a look into this, because again, you've got information architects, you've got accessibility designers as well, and these all sit within this kind of UX field of how to improve the user experience. We then go to IT. So IT is, you know, everywhere's got IT departments, every business has got IT departments, and they are, you know, essential within the digital and tech industry. So whether you're working as a systems administrator, whether you're the database engineer, whether you're a network manager, whether you work on the service desk and take those calls as they're coming in, whether you're a project manager, IT is very firmly within the digital and tech industry. And again, it's one of those jobs, one of those departments, sorry, that has so many jobs and is growing, and they are there. They support everything that happens within that industry. The next section is cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is incredibly important for every business. We've all probably heard about cyber attacks that happen, the big ones get in the news. We've probably all kind of had some sort of cyber attacks. When we get those dodgy emails that come through, those phishing emails that pretend to be another company and they ask you to log on and change your details, that's what cybersecurity is. It's addressing issues like that. So cybersecurity affects us all. And as the digital and tech industry grows, cybercrime grows too. So cybersecurity is becoming a huge part of the industry and something that's incredibly important. But again, there's so many different roles within there. There's so many different, so you've got Chief Information Security Officer, you've got pen testers, you've got security specialists, you've got cyber intelligence officers. So you need a whole team of people to work within cybersecurity, to be doing, you know, the different roles, to understand what's happening out there, to test sites to see if you can break through them. There's so many roles. So again, it's a really growing part of the industry. And I think it'd be a really interesting, exciting part to get into as well, if that's kind of your where your interests lie. And then I've put here future jobs. Now, these are all jobs that are in existence right now. The reason we've put future jobs is because they're not, they're maybe not out there in the masses, and there's maybe not, you know, hundreds and thousands of people doing these roles, but they are definitely, you know, AI is definitely out there, blockchain, augmented reality, it's all out there. But these are the jobs that are going to grow more and more in the future. And so we've separated them out just to show that, you know, if we were to run this in 12, 18 months time, they may have a department of their own now. But these are the jobs that are still coming through. So companies are still working out how to implement AI, how to make that work with their platforms, how to make that work with their product. It won't be right for everyone, but there are companies still looking at how that works. And once that's implemented, that is going to grow as a department. So again, think about, there are always, everything that I'm talking about here today will probably have changed to some extent next year. It does keep changing. So then I wanted to talk to you about pathways. And I think this is a really interesting section, because if I go back, that was 20 years to when I was at university, there was quite a linear path. It felt, I went to school, I went to college, I went to university. Obviously, I then dropped out. And for some careers, it still feels like there's a very linear path. With the digital and tech industry, it's not like that. You can essentially create your own pathway. There is no right or wrong way of doing it. You know, doing a degree is amazing. You can go on to do masters. You can do boot camps. There's so many different boot camps out there now that are much shorter time frame of learning, but it gives you that short, really in-depth learning up front. There's apprenticeships that I've talked about. There's now a degree apprenticeships as well, so it's that step higher. There's loads of online courses that you can do, and there's loads of free online courses. There's a lot of companies offering traineeships, so going into the industry, going into that business and learning. There are loads and loads of grad schemes. There's internships and there's internal training as well. And you can create your pathway based on what feels right for you, and what opportunities are available to you. So you can go into a grad scheme in a tech business with not necessarily any tech knowledge, but you will learn whilst you're in there, and they take you through a grad program, and you eventually find your home of what it is that you enjoy and what you work best in. There are roles that you can go into within a business. Say you work in the sales department, there are internal training programs within businesses that people say, I know everything about this business, it's great, but I want to work as a software developer. There's a lot of internal training programs that will take you from within that business into a more digital and tech focused role. A lot of businesses love doing that because they think, you know, everything about the business, and that information is going to be really valuable in that next step as well. So the reason I've put this up is, don't feel like there is only one route for you. Be open to the routes that you can do. And even if you're working in a role that doesn't feel like it's in tech, the digital and tech space, and you want it to be, there's still possibilities to move. So have a look and think about all the options that are available to you. So we're talking about employability now, and we work with a lot of the big tech employers, a lot of startups, a lot of the mid-range companies in this space. And we always ask them, what is it that you're looking for from people? And very few come back and say specific, especially starting out in your career or starting out in your career in the digital and tech industry. Very few are looking for a specific level of qualification. What they do want is a passion for the industry. They want to know, so if you're going to Auto Trader, that you're going in as a software developer, whether that's an apprentice or on a grad scheme, whatever it is, they want to know that you're passionate about the digital and tech industry and you're here to stay, because they're going to invest a lot of time in you. They also want to know, are you passionate about working for them? So what is it about them? Is it about working with cars? Is it about the culture? What is it that you're passionate about? Because that's what they want to bring into that business, that passion. There's a desire to learn. People really want that desire to learn. So no employer is looking for you to have all the answers when you join. There's something that they see in you, whether that's a skill set, a qualification, kind of, you know, how you behaved in interview, whether you fit the culture. There's something that they see. But the industry moves really quickly, so they don't need you to have all the answers, but they do want you to have a desire to learn, to keep up to date with, you know, what's happening within the business, what's happening within the industry, what new technologies coming in, what new software is coming in. They want people that are open to learn and keep up with the pace of the industry. This mirrors something that was said just before I joined, but inquisitive minds ask questions. The only way to learn is to ask questions. So if you join a business and you're working on a website, for example, ask why it was built in that way. Ask why that user journey is that way. Ask questions, because it's the only way you'll learn, for one, but also you don't know that if you're bringing a different point of view or a different perspective to the person that's built that, and that might help them shape something in the future as well. So always ask questions. They're looking for experience. Now, experience is an interesting one, because people think, how do I get experience without having experience? And experience doesn't mean that you have worked for a particular company on a live project and you've been paid, or it's been an official internship. Experience can be anything. So think about the things that you can do outside of working for a particular company. Can you volunteer with a charity, for example? Can you offer to run a marketing campaign for them, or offer to run their social media if that's what you want to do? Is there something, can you build a website for yourself? Can you build a website for your family? What are those projects that you can do outside of having to work with an actual business that gets you experience? So think about the stuff that you've done at college, at uni. Think about those projects. How can you frame that as, this is my experience of working with this? They want to understand what you've done and why you did it the way you did. So don't be put off because you don't necessarily have experience of working with an employer or doing that role. Show them the experience that you do have, however you've created that. And then the final thing I've put on here is culture fit. And the reason I've put culture fit on there is about people want to know how you're going to fit into the team that you're going to. And the important thing here to take away is to be yourself. And again, it's reiterating what was said just before I joined, but be yourself. Employers want to know who you are as a person. They want to see your personality. They want to know what your interests are and your hobbies, because that makes you you, and it's you that's going to be working with them and part of that team and, you know, developing the products in the company. So they want to see you. So make sure you don't feel like you can't be yourself. Make sure you don't feel like you have to pretend to be someone or something when you're going for interviews, because employers tell us time and time again, they want to see that real person. So I will end with my top tips. So the learning element: follow people, find the brands, find companies that are doing things that you're interested in. Just get as much knowledge as you can. This is really, really useful if you get a chance to speak to employers, or you get to interview stage, or whether you're interviewing for a course, whatever it is. Build that knowledge around the area that you're interested in. And keep up to date with what's going on. You don't have to be an expert, but showing that you've got that interest is really, 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 really important. So find those people out, whether it's on Twitter or LinkedIn or some of the community groups and the platforms. Find where they are and make sure you're following them. Read blogs and posts and articles, because again, a lot of people in this industry, you'll find, give back. A lot of people have a lot to say, and they will off their own back or through their company write blog posts. They will post questions and queries or debates through Twitter or other platforms. And they'll have articles in kind of some of the industry publications as well. So just keep reading, find the things that people are talking about, just absorb as much as you can. The next thing I'd say is use social media to connect with people in the industry. Never, ever feel like you can't reach out to someone. There is a huge, huge community. And like I said, they all want to give back. They all want to connect. They've all started out somewhere. So, you know, whether you're following someone on Twitter and you engage in a conversation, or, you know, connect with someone on LinkedIn, like the worst they can do is not accept it, but the majority of people will accept it. Don't feel that you can't connect with the CTO of a certain company or the MD of a certain company. Connect with them, because that's where you're starting to build your network. When you're posting content, whether you've got questions to ask, whether they're posting stuff, it's the start of that relationship. The other thing I'll say is experiment with tech. So there's new technologies coming out all the time. There's different languages, there's different platforms. Just experiment with them. You don't have to be an expert. Again, I keep saying this, you do not have to be an expert, but have an awareness. So go and experiment. If I was going to go to a social media agency, I'd want to show that I understood the different platforms that are out there and what I'd created and what you can do. But go and experiment with them, so you've got that hands-on experience where you can. So build your own experience. So following on from what I was saying from the last slide, create your own experience. Absolutely reach out to companies if you want to get work experience there or an internship, and work shadowing, things like that. Reach out to companies, absolutely. But if you haven't got that, just create your own experience. What can you do outside of that? What can you volunteer? What can you create for other people? Build your own experience. It doesn't have to be through those kind of traditional routes that you maybe think. My next point is follow your own path. There's so many different pathways in this industry. You decide what's right for you. There's different learning styles, there's different courses. Your pathway can be personal to you. So don't compare yourself to what other people are doing. It doesn't matter if someone's doing a degree and a master's and you do a degree and then go into education. It doesn't matter if you've gone boot camp into employment and then back to do a degree. Do the pathway, create the pathway that works for you and works for your learning style, that works for your abilities, that works for your timings as well. So just follow your own path and don't worry about everyone else, because there's so many different routes in. And as you'll see from mine kind of looped around and went all over the place and backwards and forwards, and this is where I've ended up. So just follow your own path. The next one is ask questions. So, you know, really pulling on that inquisitive mind and that kind of how are you going to learn. Ask questions about why people have done things the way they do. Ask, you know, what platform they're using, why they're doing that. Ask as many questions you can, because that will help build your knowledge. But it will always also show people in the industry that you're interested, that you want to learn more, that you've got an interest in what they've created, and it'll start that conversation as well. My second to last one is to be nice. So it's a huge industry, but it's also quite close-knit as well. And what you find is a lot of people move around the same company. So some people will stay for years, but there's people move around quite a bit as well. So be nice to people on the way, because you never know when you're going to meet them again at a different company. You never know when someone's going to move jobs and want to take you with them and recruit them. So, you know, be nice to the people that you're surrounded by, because that way it will help you in your career in later life. And my final point is enjoy it. There's so much information, and I can imagine there's so much worry about what course to do and what job to do, and are you getting the right experience, and are you learning the right language, and is this the right platform? It will all work itself out. So whatever you do is the right thing, and just enjoy your journey getting there, because it's a brilliant industry to be in. It's brilliant to work on some of the products and platforms and some of the work that you get to do. So make sure you just enjoy that journey, whether it's getting there or once you're in there as well. And that's it. So are there any questions?
Thank you, Becky. There were quite a few questions, so I'll ask them to you. So
okay.
The first question we've got is from Kate is, what is a skill I can start to learn now in preparation for university and then to get a job after uni in tech?
It all depends what you want to do in tech. And I will say, anyone that's got questions, if anyone wants to follow up with me afterwards, please feel free to find me on LinkedIn and I can have a bit more of a detailed conversation with you. But it really, it all depends on what it is that you want to do. The best skill, I think, across everything is kind of building your confidence and building like your knowledge of how to approach employers and how to speak to people in the industry and things like that, because that will just that will serve you well throughout your whole career. But without knowing a little bit more about what you want, I don't know whether there's that one skill, because doing it now, you might go to uni and decide you want to do something else, but I'd happily pick up with you afterwards and we can have kind of a bit more in-depth conversation.
And I think really just those kind of very foundational transferable skills are the really good kind of building blocks to the skills where you can take it from job to job. So obviously, Becky, you went through your career path, which is very varied. And I always think those really kind of strong communication skills, strong networking skills. We had a session on Monday from a brilliant lady who's like a digital marketing specialist, but focuses on LinkedIn. And she did like a LinkedIn session about kind of virtual networking and how that's really important to get your name out and to be able to ask Becky questions on LinkedIn. So those kind of like really like foundation transferable skills like communication, teamwork, resilience, those things are really important, and you will learn them in university and you will kind of continue to learn them after it in your job spot. That's
what I'd say. You'll pick up these skills automatically as you learn through it. You'll learn from experience. And I'm sat here on this platform now talking to I don't know how many people, and all of last year I was hosting these online events, but I was never this confident and I was never as good at communications as I am now. So I've learned that throughout your career. So it's great to do as much as you can, but remember, employers aren't expecting like this perfect finished article when you go and speak to them as well.
I completely agree. And I know you're doing a session for us on Friday around about imposter syndrome and confidence and building that. And I think, especially myself, when I was kind of going to university or I was in college, and when I graduated and I started the job at UA92, I kind of would compare myself to people that were a little bit older than me that had that experience in different industries, and I was shy and kind of a little bit embarrassed about the skills that I had, even though they were brilliant and they were really strong, because I was comparing myself to other people. So just building on that point, just do what you're doing right now, be yourself, be inquisitive, but remember that you will be able to build those skills as you go, not with that perfect package straight away.
Exactly. Employers don't want an army of robots. They want real people that think in different ways, and it's the fact that you've got different people that have different skills and think in different ways that make that great team, that make great products. So I'd say do what you can, but don't worry too much.
Completely great. We've got a question from Christopher, and Christopher's put loads of questions in the chat, which I love. He's been very inquisitive. He's doing exactly what you and David previously said about asking all those questions. So his question is, do you need presentation skills to get into uni or a tech job? So I'll let you do it from kind of a tech digital industry type of question.
Again, this goes back to being yourself and learning from experience. So when it comes to presentations, absolutely practice. Practice as much as you can. So if I present now, if I know the content, I come across really confident. If I don't know the content, you can see right through it straight away, because it's maybe not something that I've written, or I don't have the background on it if people ask me questions. So, once you build that knowledge and you build that presentation, you probably will have some nerves, and that's normal. But as long as you know your stuff, then talk it through with someone and present it to them in the way that you're sharing that information. There are definitely like presentation skills courses that you can go on and how to present to a room. I don't personally think you need that when you're starting out in the industry, and especially not for interviews, because what people are looking for is what is the information you're telling them? What's that story you're telling them? So how did you approach the problem that you had, and how did you apply your knowledge and skills, and what was the solution? How do you think? That's what they're focusing on. They're not, unless you're going for a job that's like a public speaker where you need to be really good at these skills. If you're going for a job as a software developer, the chances that you will need to present are probably quite like low within your job. So they're looking at the content of that, they're looking at you, looking at how you thought about that process. So, but I always think that once you think about that, once you put all of that passion, that knowledge into your presentation, as you get going, those kind of nerves fall away anyway. So so to answer it, no, I don't think you need presentation skills. What specifically, I don't think you need to do courses. If it's something that I think if you're really aware of and you're particularly nervous about, then practice. There are definitely things you can watch. There'll be videos on YouTube, there's tips and things like that. So if you are nervous, you can go and research that, but you don't need to be that perfect presenter.
I agree. I think just being authentic is really important. And I was really shy. I don't know what year you're in, Christopher, but when I was in school, I was the shyest person ever. And I can't imagine now that my job is doing kind of presentations digitally to loads of people, or doing them on a stage in front of an audience. And that's what I do now. And it does come in time. And something that I was always instilled as a child and at school, it was fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And like Becky said, if you prepare that and you kind of build on your presentation skills and maybe do a few presentations at school or at college or part of your part-time job, those skills will come along. So don't worry too much.
Yeah. One of the things that I still do to this day is I will sit in a room on my own and I will present to no one. I don't like doing that thing where you present to someone like in a pretend environment. That doesn't work for me personally. But I will sit on my own in a room and I will present, and I'll go through the slides and I'll listen to how I'm speaking. And at that point I might think, oh, I need to change this or I need to change that, and I'll time it so I know how long it's going to take. But with pretty much every new presentation I do, I will take that time out and I'll go and sit in a room and I'll do that.
Yeah. I also record myself doing them now. So you might use Teams at school or Google Hangouts or Google Classroom, and you can record a meeting with yourself. And although I don't like to watch myself back, I can hear myself and I can hear where I'm not entirely sure of this certain piece of information. So I'll do a bit of Googling, or I'll ask one of my colleagues and they'll support me. So I think practice makes perfect. Going back to a kind of tech question. So a question that we've actually had on Twitter is, what's the most common misconception about the digital and technological industry?
I think the first one is that you have to be a techie.
Yeah.
And the second one is, if you're a developer, that you're kind of really geeky and you just sit with your headphones in at a computer all day and you don't speak to anyone, and they're totally not true. Mm-hmm. So obviously, as you'll see from my experience, I'm not a techie person. Someone tried to teach me to code once and it just doesn't work for me. That's just not how my brain works. I'm more in that creative space. But I've worked within fintech companies, because if you think of a tech company, so if you think of, let's say we take Auto Trader for example, they've got account managers in there that deal with the businesses that advertise on their site. They don't necessarily have to be tech people, but they're building relationships. You've got people that you've got admin support, you've got people answer like the sales department and things like that. There's so many different roles within the digital and tech space that don't mean that you have to be technical. So I say to everyone, no matter what your interest is, there is a role for you. And it's just understanding what are those things that you really enjoy, and then kind of trying to navigate your way through this ever-changing world to find something that aligns to you. And as we put on that kind of that planner of the different roles, there's kind of some probably more technical roles in each of them, but there's definitely in each of those area ones that don't require kind of technical skills.
Yeah. One last question is actually from myself, so I'm hijacking the Q&A. Obviously, we're dealing with a global pandemic and things are starting to get a little bit back to normal, but how do you think that the pandemic and the way that we're working and learning at the moment has affected the future of the workforce, the labour market? What do you think the impact of the pandemic is going to be?
It's a really interesting one, because it's massively changed it. but what will happen in the future, we don't know. So when the pandemic first hit, everyone got to work from home, and I think everyone was loving it for a while. They were like, I never want to go back to the office. Like, I love this home working life. Like, I can go and make a cup of tea whenever I want. I can put washing on. Like, it was brilliant. And now what you see is people want that blended approach. People are missing that human interaction, and when you're doing collaborative sessions, being able to be in the same space. What I think it will change is there'll be a lot more flexibility in the way that we work. So again, our recent skills audit showed that every single company that answered, that responded to the audit, have said there will be some form of flexible working, at least over the next 12 months. So all those companies that were very much office-based, I think there'll be a blended approach going forward. And then I think from that education point of view, all the education partners we've spoken to, again, it's what's that blended approach rather than this one size fits all. I think we're starting to look at how do we work in a way that suits what we're doing. So some jobs are better probably sat at home. Some parts of my job, I'm better sat at home doing things.
Yeah.
Some parts of my job, it's really frustrating and just want to be in a space with the team and planning everything out and mapping it out. But how do we work in a way that is right for what we're doing? And I think that's the big thing that's going to come out, that there's a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, I completely agree. One other question. So on Twitter, you've had a really, and from Chloe, you've had a really varied career, as you've spoken about, but why did you end up picking the digital industry in the end?
Because I find it really interesting. It's so fast paced, and there's so many things that are changing. There's so much impact that you can still have. So I really love, like when I went to Car Finance, I really loved what they were doing. They'd gone from kind of a startup to a 500 strong company in the space of something like 5-6 years. You know, we kept having to get new offices for the people because it was growing so fast. And it was growing fast, but we were learning and developing. And it was, there was a huge roadmap of what do we include? How do we keep adding things in? So even though I wasn't involved from a technical point of view, being involved in that industry of, you know, how things were changing, how quickly, and a lot of the work can be quite instant as well when you're working on products like that. So you can see that instant impact, and you can see how it's impacted sales. And so I just find it really interesting. And I think what I'm doing now is really working with kind of the future of the industry as well. So how do we make those changes around diversity? How do we bring more people through? How do we, you know, fill the skills gaps when there's these new job roles being created all the time? So I think for me, the industry is really exciting. I think it's really varied. You can get to work on some incredible products and brands, but also I think there's an excitement around the fact that the industry's not finished. It's just at the starting point. So there's so much possibility of what you can do.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think especially in Greater Manchester, obviously Andy Burnham, who I'll be interviewing on Friday and I'm still a bit nervous about, has brought in the digital blueprint. So, and kind of obviously Manchester Digital are trying to bridge that skills gap in digital, and then Greater Manchester are really building that digital kind of, that northern digital kind of blueprint. So it's really exciting industry to come into. And I think it's really important that I've learned from this session is that it's not just about coding and development, and you don't need to be that tech savvy. I mean, I can turn my laptop on, I can send emails, and I love tech, but I'm not very technologically minded. I can't code, I can't do any development. So that digital marketing, that really kind of calls to me. I think that's really interesting. And knowing that it's there is really great.
And I think that's one of the big takeaways is this. There is so many roles that you can do, and I think, you know, don't be defined by kind of the role that you enter with as well. There's opportunities to move and expand and change. We've got a load of videos that we've done over different times that are on our YouTube channel, and it's different people talking about their careers, and they all have changed career at some point, whether they've been in the digital and tech industry and changed roles, or whether they've gone from a different industry into it. There isn't that thing of going and having a job for life now. It changes so quickly. there's just opportunity for variety.
Yeah. So one final question, and because it's National Careers Week, it's a question I'm trying to ask all our guest speakers. So if you didn't do what you did right now, what is kind of your dream job? You don't need to retrain, you can just go straight into it. What is that dream job?
Oh, that's a difficult one. Do you know what? I'd actually, I'm going to cheat here because I have retrained already. So, and this is one of the things that came out of me working in the industry, that I found a passion of working with people and helping develop people, which is how I ended up in this kind of role of talent and skills. But, and as you said, I'm coming on Friday to talk about confidence. So I actually retrained as a coach. So I work with people on like personal development and setting and achieving goals, and also well-being and things like that. But that is something, that's where my passion is. But that is something that has come out of working within the industry and working with people. I didn't have that before I went in there. So yeah, if I could do anything else, and I kind of am doing other things, it would be kind of just working with individuals on like personal development and growth and things like that.
That's a very sensible answer.
It is, isn't it? But I think it's because that's where my passion is. But I think I've just got this belief that anyone can do anything that they put their mind to. And I know we've not all got the same starting point in life, but we can absolutely achieve anything that we want to. And that's where kind of my passion is now, is to help people make those, like, go and achieve those things. So
yeah. Well, I say it's sensible is because yesterday I asked this question to a student, and they said they wanted to be an astronaut. So that's what I was expecting, but that's a very sensible answer and a really lovely answer, because it's already kind of what you're getting at the moment as well. So yeah. Thank you so much, Becky. I've learned loads. I think I want to move into the tech industry, specifically digital marketing. I think it's really exciting. But I would just like to say thank you so much. And obviously Becky has offered her LinkedIn, her messages open. If anyone has any specific questions, you can contact Becky. You can contact us at UA92 or myself at futures@ua92.ac.uk. But really excitingly, we have an hour break, and then we're coming back for a computer science course taster at 1 o'clock, and then 1:45 till 2:15 is an employability session focused on CV and cover letter writing as well. So thank you so much, Becky, and I hope to see you on this afternoon. Bye now.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.